Next question, the member for Waterloo.
Thank you very much. My question to the Premier. Speaker, this past Friday I spoke with Ben Grazi. He and his family own and operate the Doctor's House event venue in Kleinburg in the riding of King Vaughan. They have been in the event venue business for over 35 years. They employ 130 people and they host up to 300 events a year. Due to the economic effects of the pandemic, businesses like the Doctor's House are hanging on by a thread. They've written to this government asking for help and they haven't heard anything from anyone on that side of the House. They have done their part to prevent the spread of COVID-19. They closed their doors and they are paying the highest price. They've asked for direct government support. Without it, their businesses has no future, and SECRA ends today. Speaker, will the government work with Mr. Grazi and the other event venues to support them financially through this difficult time?
The Minister of Heritage, Sport, Tourism and Culture Industry.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the member opposite bringing this important issue to the floor of the legislature. Through the ministry, we continue to engage with our stakeholders. Last week alone, we had over 700 stakeholders, including those in the event business, talk to the ministry about some of the challenges they're facing as a result of COVID-19. I had the opportunity earlier in the summer to visit Kleinburg with the Minister of Education and the local member for that area. And I can also tell you that on Thursday evening, I had a significantly long conversation with the federal minister responsible for economic development and all of my federal and provincial territorial colleagues on the requirement for us to have a national approach to supporting banquet and event spaces such as the one that you're talking about. I'd be more than happy to take your direct concerns today with my staff and meet with the individual later on today or later on this week. But we recognize these have been challenging times and we want to make sure that right now we're taking their concerns to the federal government, and we'll continue to do
Response.
that.
And the supplementary question.
Just to be clear, Mr. Speaker, these businesses are asking for provincial support. That's what they need. Speaker, Mr. Grazi formed a group with his colleagues. Collectively, they represent over 100 event venues and banquet halls and employ 5,000 people. After a drastically reduced 2020 season, most of the 1,100 event venues across the province won't be able to survive even 2 more months without government support. These venues wrote to the government explaining this problem and asking for support in the form of bridge financing, rent and mortgage relief, and real tax relief, and they have heard nothing. Speaker, Ontario's banquet halls and event spaces employ approximately 50,000 people in this province. At the very least, the government should have directly responded to the concerns. The government can't just give up on these businesses. It should not be allowed. What is the government's plan to support event venues and banquet halls in the province of Ontario? They deserve our support. We should show up for them.
Minister of Heritage.
This is the second question in a week where the NDP asked the question, I responded, and then they forgot to pivot, Speaker. The reality is this ministry, this government continues to work with event and banquet halls. We have continued to set up multiple sectoral tables, including within my ministry, 14 ministerial advisory committees alone focused on how we can best pivot to support these sectors. As I said, my ministry had a large gathering via telephone town hall last week with over 700 of our stakeholders. We continued to meet over the weekend with our theme park operators, last week with our professional sports, and we continue to meet with those like Mr. Grazi. And I'm happy to take his concerns and meet with him later today and set up a table as well for him if that's what he thinks with his stakeholders. But the reality is the member opposite doesn't seem to understand that there's no point in Ontario duplicating something that's already going to be coming from the federal government. And I had those conversations just last Thursday. I just wish, for once, they would listen.
Order. Order.